Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a preview into an event that we're going to be running in October of this year at NCM. We were invited to participate in the Grassroots Motorsports UTCC. It's the Ultimate Track Car Challenge event in October at NCM in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And it's a time trial event, so that'll be a little bit new to us. We're used to door-to-door racing. But we put our application in and they invited us to participate to showcase what an old vintage car can do. And so in preparation for that, we're going to be doing some modifications to the car to try to just obviously have some faster lap times, a little bit more stability through some of the fast speed corners. And I'll walk you through some of the thinking today. And then future videos will show the design process, the build process. We've got some events coming up in the next couple of months that we're hoping to test some of these parts at as well. And of course, we'll show you what went well and what we still need to tweak. So let me start to walk you through some of the areas that we're going to focus on. Okay, as you can see, Sabine is up on jack stands, and for a reason. There's really three things that we're going to concentrate on. One is mechanical grip. The other one is aerodynamics. And yes, we're trying to make a brick be more aerodynamic, but there's some proven things that other guys have done that we're going to draft off of. And then the third, probably most important part of all of this is seat time. So let's walk through what we think we're going to be doing for mechanical grip. The first thing is tires, right? So right now we run Maxxis tires. These are 205 Maxxis tires all around. So we have a square setup. And what we're looking to do is we're looking to run these tires. So these are Falcon RT660s at a 225 size. So a little bit wider tread profile. These are 200 tread wear tires, so these are actually what we use on our Trek setup. But we're hoping to get a little bit more grip and something, especially if the weather's crummy, and if it rains or drizzles, then we've got some tread. What does that mean? Right now, they actually fit pretty well. There's not a lot of modifications to be done, but what we do need to do is run a little bit of a spacer on the front to clear things like the struts, our cooling ducts, those types of things. So that's going to be part one of mechanical grip all around. So the second part that we're going to look at is aerodynamics. Specifically, we're going to be looking at building out a splitter in the front. And we've started design work on a 3D printed wing that'll go across the back, obviously. It's still TBD if we're actually going to use that wing. There's still some calculations and some things we're going to do. We have a fallback, obviously, that we can talk about later if we have to pull the trigger on that. But those are the two areas that we're going to concentrate on to give us a little bit more downforce, a little bit more stability, especially at NCM that has some really high-speed sweepers that should help us carry a lot more speed through the corners. Now the other area is probably minor, a lot more minor, but you know, these E30s are not exactly the most aerodynamic shapes. In fact, they're pretty much bricks. So what we're going to try to do is use Aero brick technology, aka try to smooth out the front end as much as we can. So one of the ideas that we're looking at is replacing the entire grille with maybe a real smooth piece to kind of close the gaps here and smooth this up, close out any of these holes in the front. We won't need much braking, especially when you're doing time trials. You're only doing 3 to 4 laps and then coming in. So we're going to try to see about cleaning up a lot of this. Some guys on the forum, on the Grassroots forum, have even mentioned taping up all the seams here. So we'll see how that goes. Taking off windshield wiper blades. We're still looking at the SCCA rulebook because we're going to be running during the same weekend as the SCCA Time Trial Nationals. So you're going to have some big boys playing there as well. And we have to see if we have to have mirrors. If we don't have to have mirrors, these come off. We do have to have mirrors. We may look at going with a smaller type mirror here to minimize the air here, or these just fold in and get out of the way as well. Other than that, there's not a lot you can do with these bricks to become more aerodynamic. There's under trays you can look at and diffusers. That's a little bit beyond what we want to do. And quite frankly, we don't want anything permanent because we want to be able to race this in Spec E30 and bring it back to this form without too much modification. All right, let's talk splitters. So a splitter's job function really is a few things. Number one, it usually is mounted underneath the front valance here. Some guys will bring it all the way down as close to the ground as possible. We're going to mount ours up here. NCM has some pretty big curves, and we don't want to be ripping off our splitter. That would probably be a bad day. And so we need to figure out how do we build this out. It'll probably be 3 to 4 inches sticking out in the front, mounted some way underneath. We've prototyped some pieces that I'll show you here in a minute. But really the job here is as the air comes in, the air backs up against here, creates a little bit better flow underneath, a lower pressure underneath. And then depending on how far back you take your splitter, it can actually smooth some of the air going out underneath your car. We're going to go kind of a little bit more basic, and really the idea here is to get a little bit more downforce to balance the big wing that we're going to put on the car. So let's talk mounting for the splitter. We've got to work around a few things. You know, we've got this big skid plate that we're going to keep on the car that protects this pretty fragile oil pan. We've got to work around hoses. We want to bring it back as far as we can, but we also want to be able to get to it easily, take it on and off. I just really don't want this thing to be a major surgery just to get a splitter on and off the car. So what we're thinking of, we've actually prototyped it, is to mount. You can see 2 riv nuts under there, right on the frame. Those are 1/4 riv nuts. And there's a frame that we built out that I'll mount up here in a minute and show you. But mount it there. This was built when we had a different skid plate, so we're going to see if it actually still fits. But we're going to mount it there, and then you can have the back half of the splitter mount to it. And then the front half, we built these little brackets. Again, this was something we built a while back on the bumpers. And we're going to bring support rods down all across the front. So I'm going to mount everything up and show you what we've started with that we're probably going to have to modify. Number one, for the skid plate, and 2, we've got wider tires, and there's some cutouts that we built in for skinnier tires that we'll probably have to modify as well. Okay, so we've got the old bracket mounted. This was kind of our first prototype as we were messing with this about a year ago. We were going to run this for Trek and decided not to. We're going to see if we can recycle it, but as you can see, we've got it mounted up. I just threw 1 bolt in there just as a holder. It should be 2. We may actually want to have a different way to mount that onto the frame, but this is a good start. And then as we look underneath, you can see the clearance to our skid plate is pretty close. It is tight. So what we're going to have to do, as we look at this, you can see this, it's actually touching right here. So we may need to grind this down just a little bit or extend one of these, the mounting bar down a little bit. We'll see on that, but actually it fits pretty well. So maybe some minor adjustments. We've added these little riv nuts here, and 2 more places that I'll show you once I get the actual splitter, the first prototype, mounted back up. But for our first pass, I think we've got something here that we can work with. All right, so let's talk splitter construction. Really a grassroots approach, super cheap materials. This is basically all you'll need to get started. You'll need some cardboard, because we're going to put it up underneath the car, a Sharpie, something to cut with, a little jack stand as a helper to keep it up against the car, and a little piece of wood underneath the the cardboard. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece of cardboard right here, and we're just going to put it up and underneath the little red valance here and press it up against the bottom using the jack. And then we're going to just trace out all the way around this shape right here. And then we can take an offset from this shape out, whatever the distance you want. We use 3 to 4 inches. And then you can just trace that out, cut it out, and then do a fitment. Using CAD like this, cardboard aided design, is one of the cheapest, easiest ways to get started. We use it on a ton of different projects. And the splitter is going to be one of them. And then once this is all cut out, I'll show you the pattern. And then you just basically transfer that to a piece of plywood, which is what we use because it's cheap and easy and it works. And it's easy to repair. And I'll show you that process here in a sec. Okay, so now that we have the cardboard propped up underneath the little valance panel here, this is as simple as it gets. Just take your Sharpie and just do a quick trace. All the way around. You're going to want to put a little mark at the end here of your valance so you know where it ends on both sides. If there's anything else you want to mark on it, go ahead and mark. But pretty much that's it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to measure out whatever distance we want. We'll do some offset marks. I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. Then we'll cut it out and we have our pattern. And that's about it. So now that we have our main line, this line is the line we just traced. What we're going to do is we're going to offset this. We went with 4 inches on ours. So I'll show you how to do that. Connect the dots. It's a little bit of a freehand way. There's other ways you can take a little compass. And you can have it on this line and drag it. If there's a different way that you guys have done it in the past, please leave a comment down in the doobly-doo, and then we'll learn a thing or two as well. This is just the way we did it. It was pretty quick, and I'll show you how we did this. Okay, so now we have a basic 4-inch offset. I kind of sketched it in here all the way around on both sides. I've gone ahead and straightened this up. So I've drawn a line. This will be the back of our splitter. Some designs, if you can extend this back even further, where it kind of comes back in like this, that'll even help better with the airflow. There's some real trickery stuff you can do. AJ Hartman and others on their websites have some really great products that they've developed, so go check them out. Little ducting that you can do here on the wheels. For this one, we're going to start off really basic. Just the starter, kind of starter splitter design. So then at this point, we know that this is where it's going to line up on against the valance. We're going to have this front piece, this front edge here. So we'll go cut this out. The other things that we're going to need to worry about is wheel well clearance. So as the wheels sweep one way or they sweep the other way, we're probably going to need to come in here and kind of notch it out, something like that, and get rid of this material here. And that'll give the wheels, especially these bigger 225s, some clearance as they come through. But we'll see as we start to lay all the prototypes in. But next step is we'll go ahead and cut this out, and then I'll show you where we're at with that. Okay, we've gone ahead and cut out the pattern now. So this is kind of a rough cut just to start to lay it in. The more I looked at this side here, I realized we probably don't need to go 4 inches out because the tire is probably going to be somewhere like here, and 4 inches I think is a little much unless we put some type of a ramp or something for airflow, but we'll see on that. So I started off 4 inches here, and I kind of necked it down a little bit to be a little bit more reasonable. I added in a little cutout, kind of a best guess right now. We'll put it on the car and see really what does that look like. We're also going to put in a little a piece here that will help align the splitter to this rail system that we've already built out. So more to come on here. So really the next step is take this CAD template and put it on the car to see how well it fits. So now we have the CAD template mounted to the car. You can kind of see, I think we're directionally good. The other thing I didn't mention is some racing organizations have a limit on how wide you can have your splitter. Ours is about even with the front bumper. We don't want it to stick out much further than that. But some of them, if you've ever watched Global Time Attack, these things are ginormous. They're basically like a Formula wing on a car. But you've got to have a lot of balanced aero on the back for that. And we're just not going to go that far. So on ours, little 4-inch splitter, I think will be a good starting point. Looks like we're going to have enough clearance here for the wheels. So if we rotate these wheels in, looks like we got enough room there. Yeah, plenty of clearance there for the 225s. We'll see if that translates into the wood piece. So then really the next step is to take this CAD template and transfer this pattern to a piece of plywood or fiberboard, whatever you're going to use. We just happen to use plywood, nice finished plywood, more of the high-end stuff you find at your DIY shop. And then you can repair it easy, you can cut it easy. It's pretty durable. It can take a pounding, flex where you need to, and it's, again, Grassroots cheap. So I'll show you how ours turned out. We went ahead and transferred it, painted it up, put some mounting pieces on, and I'll walk you through all of that on our V1 splitter.
2 hours later.
So now we have the pattern was made. We test fitted it to the car. We've got some of the little details worked out. We took this, we transferred this pattern to a piece of finished plywood, cut it out, sanded it down, painted it, and added some fasteners. And so then we did a test fit on that. But let me show you kind of where we ended up. This is version 1. I'm sure we'll be tweaking it, but this gives you an idea of kind of more of a finished first prototype. So again, 1/2-inch plywood. We got this at Homeless Despot or Lowe's. Pretty cheap. We've got a huge 4x8 sheet so we can make multiples of these. Bought all of this basically little tube stock, little square tube stock that we cut to shape, notched it out, some grade 8 fasteners where we need. Really, all of this was done in our garage with really basic tools. If you've got the most basic of basic tools, you can build one of these no problem. And so what we've got here simply is we wanted to have a lot of adjustability. That was kind of our thinking, because we don't know when we get to the track angles. We're not sure on tensions on things. So we wanted to have something that had some adjustability. So we've got these little turnbuckles that you can move up and down. You can twist these, and it basically pushes the screw down or up, which then moves the splitter up or down. The goal here is to have it as tight as possible underneath the valance. And so we've got these little quick disconnects. Again, the thinking here is we want to only have a couple of bolts to put it on and some quick disconnects in case something happens. So we've got these in all places. And then in the middle, we've got this little L bracket. It's just a little piece of angle steel that's been bolted on. We've got some little riv nuts, which we absolutely love. You see these in most of our videos. So we put a riv nut on here, bolted it on, and then on the frame itself, this U-shaped frame that I'll show you here in a little bit, we've got a little peg that sticks out. Basically, it's just an alignment peg. So we can get this almost one-handed attached to the car. And then on the bottom of the frame, we've got these 4 mounting points with 1/4 20 grade 8 bolts. this is a really good first start. We'll see how it goes, but we'll go ahead and fit this up on the car. We'll show you how it all kind of attaches, and then that's going to be it for kind of version 1 splitter. Okay, so now we have our version 1 splitter mounted up. I walked you through the basic construction before, so now let's take a look and see how that all worked or didn't. So we were able to mount up the 4 down pieces onto the bumper brackets using these little quick disconnects. We've got these little turnbuckles that you can move up and down that raise and lower this all the way across. On the inside, pretty tight fit. We're going to mount up the tires here in a minute. These were cut out for 205 tires to see as they swept through. Now we're running 225, so I imagine we're probably going to have to cut this a little bit more to fit, but we'll see that in a minute. But the big surprise is the fitment to our new skid plate. It is as close as you can possibly get. And I think that's going to be workable, which is awesome. So everything mounted up well. The other little piece that we may need to work with, and let's see if we can see this through the crack. Yeah, it's pretty hard to see. Is that little alignment piece I showed you earlier. I had to kind of manhandle it into place, so that may need a little bit of work. The other thing that we need to do is close this gap all the way around. Now, this is kind of first fitment, but what guys use, and we're going to try it, is little yard edging, and they mount it to the splitter itself. Basically just closes off all of these gaps all the way around. So we'll probably try that. And then we've got one more mod that we're probably going to need to make to this that I'll show you once we get the tires mounted up. Okay, so now we've got the 225 tires mounted up. It looks like initially we're going to be okay. So what I'm going to do now is check the fit between here and here to see if we're actually going to scrape and see if we need to cut out a little bit more on the splitter on the back end. And sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Plenty of clearance under there. And even with some suspension deflection, that would have to move an awful lot for it to even get close to the splitter. So I think we've got a good V1 working prototype here that we can at least work off of. And there's one last thing that I want to show you that we're going to make a modification to. So the last thing that we're going to look at, you can see that these 225s are pretty flush with the fender, but the very bottom here, the outer edge of the tire is exposed, and that's just wind resistance, Aero resistance. So what we're going to look at doing is, because we've extended this lip out a little bit, we may build out a little extension piece here that helps hopefully deflect some of the air away from the tire and kind of up and over, so you're not getting this sitting out in the air, slowing us down a little bit. But more to come on that. That'll be a future video.